Antonio here at the Audrain Automobile Museum, and today we're riding a very special Ducati. Now, it's no secret that Ducati has won a lot of World Superbike championships. They won on the 851, the 888, the 916, the 996, 998, and 999. Now, it's argued by many that the most beautiful bike in the world, or the most beautiful sport bike in the world, is the Ducati 916. Now, the Ducati 916 was launched in 1994, and that was really a big turning point for Ducati, because even though they had already won a couple Superbike championships on the 851 and the 888, this was a bike that was so futuristic looking that everyone fell in love with it. Now, when they last won their last Superbike championship with the 999 in 2006, Ducati felt that they had extracted as much as they could from the twin-cylinder engine, and they needed to have a bigger engine. But the rules in World Superbike stated that the maximum cc capacity of any engine in World Superbike had to be 1,000 cc. So Ducati decided that they were going to go ahead and make a new Superbike anyway. So they created this, the 1098, which was released in 2007. And eventually the FIM, the governing body of World Superbike, decided that they would increase the maximum engine capacity of a two-cylinder engine to 1,200 cc, because this bike is 1,098 cc. Now, the Ducati 999, when it was released, although technologically it was a lot better than the 916 platform, it wasn't very pretty to look at. Now this, the 1098, brought the styling back to where it needed to be. It's a very sleek design, these gorgeous lights in the front. It's very, very aggressive looking. Now, when this was released in 2007, this bike had 160 horsepower, which is a lot of power. But more impressive than the power is the torque. This bike had over 90 pound-feet of torque. And if you've ever ridden a Ducati, you know how much torque they have. This is a massive amount of torque. You really do need to hold on. I'm a light guy, I weigh about 145 pounds. So when I accelerate on this bike, I really need to get my weight over the front wheel, or else it's not gonna be a good. Now you'll see that I'm screaming because this bike is so loud. It's fitted with an optional Tirmignoni exhaust system, the same system that they would have used on the World Superbike. And in fact, they did win the World Superbike Championship on this bike in 2008 with Troy Bayliss, one of my childhood idols. And then they won again in 2011 with this bike on the 1198, same platform, slightly bigger engine, with Carlos Checa, another one of my childhood idols. Now, riding this, although I'm not on the track, you really do feel like you're a GP racer when you're on this thing. The torque, I'm going to keep mentioning the torque. The torque is insane. Another thing, the brakes. If you got a lot of power, you want to have good brakes. When this was released in 2007, it had the largest brakes of any production motorcycle. 330 millimeter discs by Brembo, of course. The Italians like to stick together. This is a huge Brembo monocoque caliper in the front, and you need that. This bike is good for probably 180 miles an hour, which We're obviously not going to be doing that today, but if you are going that fast, you need to have good brakes. Another thing you'll notice, this has the distinctive Ducati rattle when I pull in the clutch. I'll do an example. Hear that? This is a dry clutch. That's famous for Ducati. A lot of times if you're riding a Ducati and you go to the gas station, people will come up to you and they'll say, "Hey, I think there's something wrong with your bike." Well, no, it's a dry clutch. You'll see this thing wants to wheelie on command. You really want to make sure that your weight over the front wheel. Now also I can tell when I'm riding this that this bike has an optional slipper clutch. Basically what the slipper clutch does while you're downshifting, it reduces the friction and it doesn't allow the rear wheel to hop back and forth when you're in a heavy braking zone. One less thing for you to think about when you're flying around the track. Now, practicality. If you go up a couple gears, you can make it quiet. But this is not a practical motorcycle at all. This thing is a thoroughbred race bike. It really is. Now, this is the base model. So they did this. So 2007 they released the base model. This was the only year that they offered this bike in this yellow color. The yellow is very similar to what you would see on a Ferrari. The color code is called Giallo Modena. I think it suits this bike. Obviously the traditional color of Ducati is red. Most of them are red, but they did offer this bike in a stealth color as well, which I wasn't too fond of, but I digress. It was nice that they offered more colors on this bike. Now you'll notice as I take this turn, this bike is extremely nimble, and it has to be. The thing you'll notice about Ducatis is they're usually very narrow because traditionally they're an L-twin 90-degree motor, which allows you to keep everything nice and tight in here. The tank, if you look at the shape of the tank, it's got big indents on the side, so when you're going through a curve, you can put your knees up into the tank and push into the tank to hold on when you're leaning over. Now they did introduce a couple other models in this range. They did the 1098S, which basically gave you, the rider, Öhlins suspension in the front and the back. Better handling for the track. You wouldn't really notice it on the street, but it's good for the track. They also introduced the 1098R. The Ducati 1098R actually featured the 1198 motor. The 1198 motor brought the horsepower up to 186 horsepower, which is crazy. But it was one of the first bikes to introduce actual race-derived traction control. So this 1098 here has no rider aids. It's really the last of the true super bikes. She's aggressive, she's angry. The thing is, you gotta be a good rider to ride one of these things, but if you're gentle on your inputs, your shifting and your throttle, it's actually a really enjoyable bike to ride. Another thing, so with the V-twin motor, there's a lot of vibration. There's a lot of vibration in the seat, but the worst thing is in my hand. My hand is already asleep. I've only been riding this for 20 minutes. There's a ton of vibration. Now you'll notice if you look down at the dash, it's got around a 12,000 RPM red line. I've maybe hit 9,000 RPM today. You really do need a straight road and a lot of space to open this thing up because it is a freaking rocket ship. But the minute you start to put it into some curves, you really understand what the Ducati magic is. These bikes handle so well. They give you so much confidence. And these things never cease to put a smile on my face. So, I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed making it for you. As always, please like and subscribe. We need to get more Ducatisti here on the channel. As always, we'll catch you in the next one.